Hey everyone, we would love to welcome you to another episode of Dev Talk, the new podcast from CenterPoint Integrated Solutions, where we talk about relevant topics around development and try our best to give you some great insight, wonderful tips, and advice along the way. Joining us today, we are pleased to be sitting with Greg Toler, the CEO of CenterPoint Integrated Solutions. Greg and his wife Stacy started this unique company 15 years ago and have grown into one of the premier consulting and development project companies in the entire country. Servicing some of the biggest retail brands out there over the company's time, such as CarMax, UPS, Floor & Decor, and more, CenterPoint has developed over 900 plus projects in 48 states with a 95% on-time, on-budget success rate. That is a pretty impressive track record. In short, in acting as a true owner's rep on the service side of development, Greg's company is a one-stop shop, a CenterPoint to help other companies when and where they need it most. What a model, especially nowadays when companies are looking for strong program management resources to help them on so many fronts. On the personal side, and when he is not at work, you can most likely find Greg spending time with his awesome family, on the golf course, traveling, and or drinking a good glass of Stranahan's bourbon on his deck here in Colorado. So on that note, let's dive into our first topic for this episode, one that really hits home with anyone and everyone who has ever been involved in development: due diligence and feasibility. What it takes to be great at this stage and why it's so important to measure thoroughly to ensure you cut appropriately. Sounds easy, but not always so much. So Greg, you've had a ton of experience with this. It's important with every single project I know we're involved with as a company and what you've seen in your career, and trying to teach and coach a lot of our employees on why this step's so important. Can you kind of go into some of the insights, maybe give us some tips on what you've learned throughout your time and why it's so important for companies to put huge emphasis on this?
Sure. Our clients come to us and they either are looking at a piece of property or they already have a piece of property under control, and they have 60, 90 days to identify any issues associated with that site. And you want to identify all of the issues that have a budget impact and a timeline impact. And so we do a very thorough job of understanding what the local jurisdiction is and putting that on a schedule and making sure that we understand, the client understands what kind of time frame we're facing, and if it's even doable within their purchase and sale agreement. Hopefully it is, or they renegotiate some dates on the purchase and sale agreement. But the bigger part of stepping through the feasibility study is you want to spend as little money as possible to find out that the site does not work. And so that's kind of the approach we take, and we step through the due diligence, not spending the big ticket items until the end of the process, like geotech. That's a big ticket expense. Not really any need to know that at the very beginning of the stage. Certainly important for the design team, and to make sure you're not buying a site that has geotechnical issues that will cost you money. At the end of the day, we're stepping through the municipal code, the fees that are associated with developing this project, the timelines, we're building a schedule, and we're just making sure that we uncover all the issues that are associated with developing this site. That's going to, in the long run, it's going to save the client money. And more importantly, if they pick a site that turns out to have zoning issues or any other kind of issues, permitting, etc., then you can walk away and you spent little money and hopefully go find another site.
No, it totally makes sense. Before I jump in and ask you, about an example that maybe you could share with us. Any, young person just starting with your company, I was going through this for the first time, and I was really trying to understand, maybe some of the biggest things that you and your team and, the culture with this company, really specific, that you really put emphasis on for people to keep an eye out, or people to be on top of, people to really be proactive with, that can help a company out there in the stage?
Yeah. I mean, understanding, number one, what's going on at your site and around your site. We recently had a project that was abandoned after working on it for 9 months, solely because the neighbors did not want the project there. The site was zoned use by right. Our clients could have attempted to go build on that site, but I don't think that they would have ever gotten approved, because the neighbors got organized and they even got the governor, the mayor, everybody involved to support their cause of not building the project.
Is that kind of what's in today's news right now? Is that kind of what's happening with the Buc-ee's situation down on Monument?
Exactly.
I know I live down in that area, and
neighbors
that seems to be the hot topic.
There's a new term called NIMBY, and neighbors are using it, not in my backyard. And that's kind of their way of saying you're not welcome to the community, and we're not going to support your project. And in the case of use by right, you could still forge forward, but you probably spend a lot of money and a lot of time negotiating with the neighbors, negotiating with the city, trying to come to an acceptable resolution. It would just be incredibly expensive.
Interesting. All right. Well, so kind of moving into example, anything more specifically from, current examples or anything that you've come across in your career that, you could share with the audience here a little bit, as far as where, why this stage is so important.
Yeah. I mean, during this phase, we're going to the cities and we're identifying the processes. We're building relationships with the planning and zoning and the building department. And, we want them to know that, hey, this is our project. We are, ready to build in your community. And we go through an extensive feasibility checklist on our part, including a site investigation report to identify all the regulations, all the costs associated with everything. That's kind of the academic part of it. The next part is the environmental and the geotech. Those two can kill a deal pretty quick. You get your phase 1 done. And if you have issues or recognize environmental conditions, then you're either going to have to do a phase 2 or at least deal with what the regulations state that you've got to clean up or handle, however whatever the environmental issue is. Same thing with geotech. I mean, we've had sites where we went and did the borings and we get 5 feet down and it's just mush. And especially like we've done projects in Louisiana where it's basically a swamp and there's peat moss down there. And there's a lot of sites that aren't buildable because of the bog and the peat moss and everything down there. So those are lessons learned that it's a really good thing to do a thorough investigation. All the good money spent in feasibility and due diligence will save you money on the back end for sure.
It's the age old, saying, right? Not everyone always believes that that's true, but I guess they learned the hard way,
right?
Unfortunately. Well, that's a wrap for this episode. Greg, we can't thank you enough for taking the time to chat with us. We know that we like to give you little nuggets here about due diligence and feasibility and all these other topics throughout the podcast. But if you ever have any questions or you want to reach out to us for any sort of insight, please contact us anytime.